Hello, and welcome to the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast, where we learn about the ocean, share sea stories, and explore ocean careers. I'm your host, Kara Muzia. Let's dive into today's episode. This episode is brought to you by you. Thank you to those of you who have become patrons of the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast. For less than the cost of a dive tank refill or a cup of coffee, you can help keep the podcast episodes coming. There's also some fun bonuses for patrons, so be sure to check those out at patreon.com/marinebiolife. That's patreon.com/marinebiolife. Hey, do you want to help the oceans? Have you considered a career in marine biology, but maybe just aren't sure where to start? Head on over to my website, marinebio.life, and subscribe to my newsletter. When you subscribe, you'll receive a free PDF download where you'll learn the 7 steps to becoming a marine biologist without the degree. Hello, mermaids, pirates, ocean lovers, and land lubbers. Welcome to today's show. Question: who is a computer's favorite singer? Adele. What is the best way to learn about computers? Bit by bit. My guest today is Borg Costanzi, IT guru at PEW Charitable Trusts. Her job? To help track international fisheries. This wasn't what she thought she would do initially, however. Originally, Dawn thought she would go into software design. We had a fun conversation today learning Dawn's story, more behind the scenes of IUU fishing and international fishery management, and just how it impacts us all. Please enjoy. Dawn, welcome to the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast. I am so excited to chat with you today.
Thanks, Kara. So am I. Thanks so much for reaching out and inviting me here.
Yeah. So you work with PEW Charitable Trust studying or researching or really tracking IUU, which is illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. But starting out, you had no inclination, no idea that this was even a thing, that you wanted to do this. So when growing up or going into college, what did you want to focus on?
Yeah, so I love talking about this. I'm glad we started with this question. So I went into college studying IT, so information technology. And I really just was planning to be a software developer. So I have no conservation, no legal education or background. And it was a series of coincidences really that brought me to work in this field of fisheries policy, which I'm very grateful for. So I had studied IT, as I said, and in particular computer science and artificial intelligence. And my dissertation was in computational linguistics, so nothing to do with this. But when I graduated, I got a job with a Maltese software development company. And one of our clients happened to be the government's Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture. And then I got assigned to a project tracking fishing vessels, and then later to the development of an electronic register of fishing vessels. And then that's when the coincidence happened that the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization at that time had a similar project going on, and they wanted to develop a similar register for the Mediterranean. And they got in touch with the Maltese authorities to see if there was anyone from our team in Malta to consult with them for a year and share our local experiences. And I thought that was really interesting. So I applied, and I was really lucky to be selected. And so I started working for the FAO for about 6 years. I started with software development. And then slowly, I shifted to policy making and capacity development. And then I realized these are the things that really make me tick. So, so that's how I got into it.
Yeah. So can you go way back? So when starting off, you were working for the Maltese government, correct?
Well, it was a private company, but the Maltese government was one of our clients. Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. And how did you get that opportunity? How did that door open for you? Or was it like a bulletin board, or you were like, that sounds interesting, like in a job board?
Oh, well, actually, in our penultimate year at university, we were given the opportunity to apply for internships. And I had applied for a few different ones, and then I was selected by this company. So I started working just a few hours a week throughout my last year of university and in the summer. And then when I graduated, I joined full time.
Okay. And what were some of your roles and responsibilities as you kind of grew into that role?
So mostly developing software,
Okay.
both front end and back end, which means both the side that the user sees, but also everything going on behind the scenes. And mostly related to tracking
Mm-hmm.
of vessels, but also of, for example, postmen and postwomen, and delivery trucks and stuff like that.
Oh,
Yes, but I think my favorite part of that role was when I got to sit with the client. So I was sent to the Fisheries and Aquaculture department to basically figure out what they do on a day-to-day basis, what their requirements from the software would be, and just really understand how that authority was working. And I found that extremely interesting.
yeah. That's fascinating stuff. Okay. So what it what were some of the things that kind of surprised you with tracking, or what were some of the hurdles that you initially encountered with like starting this like fisheries tracking in Malta?
Um, we had a good team. So for some of them, this wasn't new. And so I
Okay.
was really well guided. But I think I was just surprised that this whole world existed out there. So
Yeah.
when I was assigned to the project, I was just like, tracking fishing vessels, okay. And then we started talking about things like catch documentation, which are systems for fishers to be able to report where they're
Hmm.
operating and what fish they're catching and whatever. I was like, oh, I didn't know this existed either. And then many other things like related to the sales of the seafood products and the statistics. And it just started widening up slowly, slowly. And I was just so surprised that there was such a huge industry related to all of this.
Yeah. So going to this, you didn't even really realize that fisheries had to track what they were catching, what they had to report, or is that something you kind of like vaguely knew in the back of your mind and you just didn't realize how in depth it was?
I think I just assumed it was something that happens like you would track any other industry, but I had never put much thought into it
Mm-hmm.
before I was assigned to this client. And I think there are many things that go on that you don't really realize until you get pulled into it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't aware of the fisheries management sphere, let alone illegal fishing and how that's a problem. It was
Mm-hmm.
just all so new. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you got into this, what really struck you of like why this is so important? And like, I'd imagine this is the reason what really kept you pulled in, right?
Yeah, so obviously, I started to realize that fish is so important for so many people around the world,
Mm-hmm.
and that it needs to be really well managed for it to be sustainable. And so there are many different things that need to be done that I had never really given much thought to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it surprised me as well to learn how many people depend on the ocean and seafood for their livelihoods and for food security, and how many communities the fisheries world touches worldwide. Um, so yeah, I think it was just the broadness and the depth of it all that was quite surprising to me.
Okay. Yeah. That is, and it's really important because yeah, like you said, like so many people rely on it, and to be able to track it, we've had fisheries that have collapsed around the world, and so to just get a better idea of how to manage it so that people can continue to rely on it in the future, and then kind of evolving into your current role of tracking more like the illegal side, not the fishing with the fishers that are actually reporting and tracking their catches. This is important because what did I read? It was like 1 in 5 fish that are presented in the market are IUU fish. Is that
Yes,
correct?
1 in 5. Yes, those are kind of dated statistics now, but
Okay.
we assume they're probably still correct, if not more than that. And it's even more in some parts of the world where there is limited capacity for monitoring and so on. So yeah, it could be even worse than that. Hopefully not, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
So your role, graduating from working with the government at University of Malta and then going toward to FAO, what shifted? It seems like you at least your scale broadened, right? You were no longer working just in specific country, but multiple countries.
Yes, exactly. So when I started working with the FAO, I was on more global projects. So they were still related to the development of information systems in the beginning. So the first one was this Mediterranean project on vessels. And then the second one was a global record of fishing vessels. So trying to come up with a system that allows countries to report what vessels they have registered and all information related to, for example, authorizations that they've been given and licenses to fish and so on. And then I also worked on a questionnaire for countries to be able to report their progress and how well they're doing in implementing what is known as the Code of Conduct for Responsible Fisheries. So that also really helped me broaden my scope, because that code is in itself covering very many different topics. And so even just building the system for the countries to report on that allowed me to have some insight into all the different aspects that are considered.
Yeah. So what did that look like? This code of conduct? What were some of the I guess codes, right? Some of the regulations or stipulations that people were agreeing to when they were starting to use this system.
Yeah, so the Code of Conduct is over 25 years old. It's an FAO, I think we could call it guidelines, because they're not really rules. But it talks about many things, such as how states should monitor, control, and issue surveillance on their vessels, things related to aquaculture, things related to fish trade, different conservation measures like related to the protection of seabirds as well. And obviously there is a related document on IUU fishing, which is then eventually what I got into more. But yeah, it is very broad.
Yeah, it is. So how did you shift from, reported tracking to IUU fishing?
Yes, so the Global Record of Fishing Vessels, which is one of the projects I was on, its intention is actually to help fight IUU fishing. Okay. So by knowing which vessels are registered and authorized to operate, then you can also carry out risk assessment on vessels, and you can try to figure out which ones are the ones operating outside the law. So that was my first in to the illegal fishing side. And then from there, that's when I applied for the role at PEW, and I started working on the adoption and the implementation of port state measures. These are the controls that port authorities should put in place to make sure that foreign vessels that are trying to enter their ports are not carrying seafood that's a product of IUU fishing. And the global record, which I had been working on previously, is one of the tools that these authorities can use to obtain more information about those vessels that are trying to enter the port. So that's the link. So from the records of vessels to the implementation of port state measures. And I did that for the first 5 years or so that I've been at PEW. So yeah, that was my first role there.
Very cool. So how do you figure out which vessels are operating outside the law?
Well, it's not easy, of course.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a detective.
Oh, I mean, we don't. So at PEW, that's not what we do. As in, we're not actually trying to figure out which the vessels are. We're trying to equip the country reps with the tools and the information that they need to be able to do that.
Okay.
So it's a lot about making sure that, for example, there's information exchange that is happening between the authorities that hold the information and need the information. And also helping establish processes and procedures to, as I said before, carry out risk assessment and to basically try to put together a picture of what those vessels are doing. So there are tracking systems which allow the authorities to have some information about where the vessels were operating. Then they can cross-check with whether they have licenses to do that. They can look at what's on board if they do inspect a vessel, And then when you put all the information together, you should be able to validate whether that vessel has been doing what it was supposed to or not, and then try to find evidence if not and take action. But as I said, that's not something we do. We're just trying to enable the state authorities to do that themselves.
Okay, so the information you provide is this global record, this record of vessels, and then there's tracking information along with these vessels. Is this using the AIS systems?
Yes, so we don't actually provide the systems. The global record is an FAO system.
Okay. Gotcha.
And the countries are the ones providing the information themselves. It's the system that is made available by the FAO. And we do a lot of research related to AIS analysis. So there are other companies and organizations that make that information available. And then we do work with other organizations and researchers and so on to analyze that information and try to make sense of it and try to give indications of, for example, where efforts should be focused and what data is still missing that needs to be collected in order to figure out what's going on. And really also giving recommendations on how that information can be used by the authorities and others so that they can enforce their waters as well.
So which countries are you predominantly working with?
Well, different parts of our project work with different countries. At the moment, I'm leading a new work stream on regional coordination, and that is looking to help build a multi-state coalition at regional level in Central or South America. So we'd like to help those states work together to meet their responsibilities and to demonstrate how to achieve fisheries compliance and ocean governance more broadly. And we're trying to bring together the policy and the enforcement aspects that we believe are really important to end illegal fishing. So we're still at early stages. We haven't really selected the exact countries yet. We're carrying out some research. And then we're going to have a feasibility study to figure out where we should be working and where we can make a more worthwhile contribution. And then we'll be designing our strategy with a handful of countries in that region. So the work stream that I manage will be focusing on that Latin American part of the world.
Hey, Kara here. I hear it all the time. How do I become a marine biologist? Or my niece wants to help the ocean. Where does she even start? I hear from students, yes, and also nurses, HR professionals, and other mid-career folks who wonder if they could still make their dream of working with sea turtles or sharks come true, wondering if it's too late to answer the ocean's call. Here's what I've learned after 20 years in the field and hundreds of interviews. There's no straight line, no magic degree, and no gatekeeper. You create the path forward. If this sounds overwhelming and vague, I've created 2 tools to help you stop wondering what if and start moving forward with clarity and purpose. The first is my free guide, Be a Marine Biologist Without the Degree. Over 1,000 people have already downloaded this guide and taken their first step towards ocean impact. Inside, you'll find 7 concrete, doable actions to help you get started, whether you're just exploring or ready to make a change. Then there's the Ocean Blueprint. This is a 30-day self-paced course that helps you build your unique path into ocean science and conservation without quitting your job or going back to school. Inside the Ocean Blueprint, you'll get daily prompts to explore your interests, skills, and next steps, a structure that turns overwhelm into real momentum, and a bonus section to root your work into ocean connection. You don't have to wait for a degree, a perfect plan, or permission. Whether you're wading in or ready to take the deep dive, these tools are here to help you move from dreaming to doing. The ocean called. Are you ready to answer? Links in the show notes and on my website, karagracemuzia.com. I can't wait to see the waves you'll make. Awesome. I read that you had an example of of benefits of sharing in the data, right, of this whole system, this global information exchange system. And you cited a vessel, it was named STS-50, and was poaching toothfish in the Southern Ocean. Would you share that story and kind of how, like, what y'all are doing, help bring this vessel to light?
Yes, without getting into too many of the details of it,
Yeah.
our team was supporting for a long while a group called Fisheries Africa. And that was another regional initiative which has had a lot of success over the years. And it brings together state authorities in East Africa, so all across, all down the coastline from Somalia down to Tanzania, I think it is. Those states, they share information and intelligence that they have on fishing vessels, and they work together to try to combat illegal fishing, as is the case of this STS-50. So STS-50 was, as you said, illegally poaching toothfish. Then it tried to enter one of the ports, and then the countries were working together to alert each other to where the vessel might go next and what information they had on that vessel, so that they could effectively sort of stop it proceeding to unload its fish, and also take the necessary action to against the operators, take the necessary action against those that were managing the vessel and the operators, so that it couldn't continue to fish illegally.
I love it.
That's the
It's like
fun
detective
part.
work on the high seas with like international borders. That's fun.
Yes, unfortunately, we're not doing that directly ourselves, but it
Right.
is really encouraging to see these sort of success stories, definitely.
Right. And that's what your work is facilitating. Like that's the beauty of it, right?
Exactly. Yes, that's what we
Yeah.
try to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that it kind of struck me as we were talking, toothfish, a lot of times Antarctic toothfish on menus in restaurants is resold as Chilean sea bass because nobody wants to eat something called a toothfish. So for listeners, that's something to keep in mind. That's what
Yes,
it is.
definitely.
Kind of on that note, how has working in this realm shifted your personal habits?
Oh, yeah, that is a good question. So, I know that there is quite a push recently to, for example, not eat seafood to protect our oceans. I think it's more about being aware of where your seafood is coming from and asking the questions, and trying to figure out through the supply chain whether the policies and the regulations have been followed, which is really difficult, to be quite honest, because when you pick up some seafood in the store, you don't have all the information to make those decisions with accuracy. But I think yes, working in this realm has definitely made me more aware of certain species that, for example, are more at risk. And therefore, I avoid eating those, of course. And I try to diversify a little bit so that, we're not always all eating the same seafood and depleting those stocks too much, but also just trying to ask the questions more.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I know, it can be a lot trying to, you go to a store or a restaurant and you have certain seafood selections. And if you don't know anything about it, it's like, okay, well, what's their life cycle? Is it fast reproducing or not? We should eat the faster reproducing ones over the ones that take 10 to 15 years. Okay. And then, oh, how is this fisheries managed? Where was it caught? How is it caught? And as a consumer, these are a lot of questions. So, I mean, people kind of do one or two things. They either don't ask the questions, just like say whatever, I'll just eat it, or they just don't eat seafood at all. And I think your point of asking the questions is super impactful because it shows that people do care and we want to know. And I think it'll drive the change from a consumer level.
Yes, I agree. I think when the supply chain actors know that there is that interest and that people are asking those questions, then they do make an effort to sort of clean up their act, or maybe even just figure out whether what they're doing is enough. And I think we've seen it's quite effective. So, for example, in the UK, where I'm based, there is quite a big consumer push for better human rights protections in fisheries, but not only. And we have seen that a lot of the seafood buyers and other supply chain actors are paying more attention to that. And there's more of an awareness that fishing is one of the most dangerous occupations, actually, and many people don't know that. And that those who operate outside the law are often not willing to invest in protecting the people that work for them enough either. And so, yes, there is more attention on that, and you can see improvements being made. Of course, it takes a while, but knowing that there is that consumer interest, we can see that there are positive shifts being made. So yes, I would definitely support asking the questions and trying to figure out, where your seafood comes from. There are apps that can help as well, where you can look up certain species, and it's simplified for the consumer as well, where there are color coding of how risky or not that is. And we are also working with the industry to create those sort of tools for themselves. So not for consumers only, but also for those buying the seafood that then ends up on our shelves, trying to create some tools for them to ask the questions from further down the supply chain, so they can also figure out whether they need to make some changes to their supply chains.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, because most of the time it's not fishermen selling directly to the consumer, right? It's not like fishermen get off the boat and go to the fish market and then people come and buy it. I mean, it happens in some places, but most of, at least, in the US and probably in the UK as well, most of the time it's fishermen sell to somebody else, whether it's a grocer or a small seafood market, and then the consumer goes and that's where they purchase it. So I like that idea of supplying the information to that middleman, that market or the grocer, and having them make those decisions a little bit more consciously and giving them all the tools to equip them to do that.
Yes, exactly. I mean, when you buy seafood or anything else, really, in the store, you kind of assume that what you're purchasing has come through legal channels. And problems like IUU fishing, they're actually deceiving the consumers, right? Because you believe that you're buying something that's well sourced, but at the end of the day, it's not. And so, as you say, we need to empower the middleman to be able to check a little bit more how that fish ended up, in their hands, and how to better make decisions based on the risk related to IUU fishing and other things as well.
Yeah. You grew up in Malta, correct?
Yes, I did. I grew up in Malta. Yes, I lived there.
And then you went to university there, and then you moved to Rome for a little bit while you're working at FAU, and now you're in FAO, excuse me, and now you're in London.
Yes,
have you
right.
seen like a shift? I imagine, because these are huge cities. So is there a huge shift in like the fish markets or people's perspective as you've kind of moved around?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I can see a huge difference between Malta and London, for example, with maybe Rome being somewhere in the middle. So in Malta, everything is much smaller. We have a small population, and so things are more direct. People are more likely to, get seafood, for example, directly from the fishers or from a fish market, without necessarily going through all the processing and then buying it in the store or what have you, although that is becoming more common, of course. But also, I think there is less of an awareness, maybe because there hasn't needed to be in the past, because, until recently, supply was relatively stable, I guess. And so the question didn't really pose itself. Whereas I see more awareness here in London of conservation in general, which includes seafood, but is much broader than that. And I think even, related to things like climate change, there's more awareness here. It's a more international community, and these problems present themselves on a much larger scale. And I think there's just, as I said before, a much higher level of awareness. So yes, I definitely see differences there. And I hope that that level of awareness will grow all over, because obviously we need to take action wherever we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, kind of going back, when you're going into university and you're like, I'm going to major in information technology, what kind of job did you envision yourself having?
I'm not someone who thinks too far ahead. So I've never
Mm.
had sort of the big dream of, oh, this is what I want to do with my life. I
Okay.
kind of work on micro ambitions.
Yeah.
So little things at a time. And I always have tried to take opportunities up as they present themselves, even
Mm.
if it's not always clear where they may lead me. And I think that has served me well so far, because, it shows that there isn't always a straight path. I've always been interested in trying to do something that makes a difference, even though I wasn't really sure how I would get there. And then even studying information technology, taking up a series of opportunities, I managed to get to this, to this field, which I feel has an important impact, and which I mean, I can't really think of doing anything else now, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that I had a very clear idea of what I want to do. I just imagined myself, developing software for different clients, and I always wanted to work internationally. So I was very glad when I got the opportunity to work in Italy, and then it just went from there.
I love it. So, I read that you did have a small stint. You left the fisheries world, or maybe worked in tandem for the university for a little bit, and then you came back.
Yes. I the first time I moved to London, I was working for a university here.
Okay.
Um, and really, that was because I wanted to move to London for personal reasons, and
Mm.
it was a good opportunity. It fit in well with my IT background. It was actually a really nice working place, and the people were great too. But then after a while, I felt like, oh, this is not really making good use of the experience I've had in the fisheries field, and I really
Mm.
enjoyed that. And so it just drew me back in, and I couldn't say no. I just went back back to the FAO for a little while.
Ah, you can't leave now. Got
Yeah,
your hooks in
brilliant.
ya. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I just I thought like, okay, the fisheries thing was fun, but at the end of the day, my background is IT. I don't need to be doing that forever. IT is one of um, those industries which is very fortunate to be applied to everything. Every sector
Yeah.
needs IT.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that had sort of drawn me to it when I was deciding what to study at university and so on. But yeah, when I left the fisheries world, and it just was sort of doing IT more for the sake of the software itself, rather than what the software was being used for, then I realized, like, okay, no, I think I need to go back.
Hmm. Yeah. I love it. Pulled you right back in. That's fun.
Yeah, it worked out well. I'm definitely not complaining.
You got this job in fisheries and stuff, and you made the leap from IT. Do you like to play in the ocean? I mean, growing up on an island in the Mediterranean, I would assume that you spent some time in the ocean, right?
Definitely. So yes, I am an island girl at the end of the day. Malta is very small, so you're never more than maybe half an hour or 45 minutes from the Mediterranean Sea.
Okay.
So yes, I have very fond memories of spending my weekends with my parents by the sea, and with my grandma, swimming when we were on summer holidays and so on. So the sea has always given me sort of a sense of well-being
Yeah.
all my life. And I think once I started traveling more, especially to different continents, and then you see different oceans,
Mhm.
or well, it's just one ocean, but different sides of the ocean.
Right.
And then I started snorkeling, and then later diving. I think that got me to appreciate the ocean even more. So yeah, definitely, I am very attracted to the ocean. I could spend my days on the beach. which is difficult to talk about on a grey, rainy day in London. But yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Going from an island to London would be challenging. I could only imagine.
Yeah, it took some getting used to. Makes me
Yeah,
appreciate my time by the ocean more, though, when I get there.
absolutely. Do you think that strong foundation and love for the ocean helps drive your work?
Yes, I would definitely say so. I mean, as I said earlier, I've always wanted to find some way to make a difference. I've always
Mm-hmm.
been interested in the environment and helping people more than the environment even.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that this is related to the ocean, and I just really love being by the sea and watching marine life and so on, it definitely has an extra attraction there. Yeah.
Yeah. And the argument could be made that while you're helping people and the environment, you're also helping the environment and vice versa, right?
Of course, it's all interdependent. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to focus on getting to a balance where we are conserving the environment and also people are able to sort of use it sustainably and maintain their livelihoods and their food security and so on. So it's a tricky balance, but yes, definitely they are interdependent, and hopefully we can find a way to protect and um, conserve both the people and the planet.
Yeah. So, in a perfect world, what would vessel tracking or, I mean, I guess fisheries tracking look like? Could you kind of walk through that process?
Yeah, that is a big question, but
Yeah, it
maybe I'll
is.
just break it down to some main aspects. So first of all, we'd like to have the right rules in place, right, and the right policies, so that we know that if everyone operates as they should, then the management is sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need clear rules and regulations. We need countries to agree on those together, because obviously these are shared resources, and so it has to be done in a group format. It wouldn't be effective if individual states or groups are taking decisions on their own. So there is this very important aspect, I think, of international cooperation, and that is necessary to set the framework, let's say. Then once you have those rules and regulations in place, then you need to have, as we've been talking about, then you need to have the information about what's actually happening. So you need the systems to be able to obtain the information, exchange the information, analyze the information, and so on. And then you also need to be able to take action when things are not going as they should, right? So you need the different authorities to have the power and the capabilities, first of all, to be able to use that information and decide what to do next, and prosecute if they need to, or maybe it doesn't need to get to that point, but understand who is operating outside the law, and then take action against them, so that becomes more risky business. So as we know, fishing operators, like anyone else really, they are looking to make money. They work according
Mm-hmm.
to economic benefits. So if it
Mm-hmm.
becomes riskier to operate outside the law,
Mm-hmm.
then they're not going to do it. So we just need to tip that balance where it becomes more likely that they are sort of detected if they operate illegally than not.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
hopefully the probability of them deciding to do that it reduces significantly.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So in my head, right, in a perfect world, there's no IEU fishing, right? Everybody's like operating inside the bounds, and they're tracking their catches in whatever species, size, whatever other data that fisheries managers need in order to make educated decisions. And because these vessels are out so frequently and catching fish, it really could help push the science better, right? You make better educated fisheries managed decisions based on what these vessels are catching. So in a perfect world, it kind of just all like works together and nobody's navigating outside these bounds. Again, I recognize like IUU fishing's a huge problem right now, but I like that goal. I like that goal of like the fishers are helping educate the science, educating the public, and also providing a service, because they do. People really like to eat fish, and I get it.
Of course, yes. No, it is a lot like that. I mean, that's what we need to aspire to. At the moment, we know that IUU fishing is undermining efforts, whether they're national or regional or international, anything, to manage the fisheries sustainably. And one of the reasons is that the science is skewed because we don't have accurate data. So, as you say, in a perfect world, we would have everyone operating inside the rules and providing the information so that we can take the right decisions. I mean, some economists and scientists believe that even if everything is perfect, there will always be people who operate outside the rules, just because that's human behavior. But it's all about shifting behavior, right? And trying to get people to do the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I don't know what that percentage looks like, 1 in 5 fish caught, but if we can, make that number down to like a very tiny, small percentage, that would be ideal, right? And then you can make better management decisions, because like I mentioned earlier, we have had fisheries collapse. So people really do there needs to be some sort of data management and analysis with it, because there's just so many people that want to eat the fishes.
Of course. And if you think of, other parts of the world, like say Africa, but not only, there are large communities that are depending on seafood as their main source of protein. So it's not even about liking to eat fish, it's just necessary for nutritional purposes. So yeah, it's super important to be able to manage that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. There's lots of people around the world that sustenance fish, right? They need to have those fish in the ocean. That's their livelihood. That's their meals that they bring home every night to their family. They don't have another option. So it's important to keep balance the fisheries for everyone.
Exactly. Definitely.
Yeah. So got a question for you. My answer changes daily. So, you can say the answer now and it could change tomorrow. But what is your favorite sea creature and why?
Oh, okay. I am also undecided on this one. So I really love sea turtles. I had a tortoise as a pet when I was growing up. So they are different, but they are similar. So I really do enjoy watching them in the ocean.
Yeah.
But I also really enjoy watching octopus. I find the way that they move and that they disguise themselves really fascinating.
Yeah.
And I have to say that one of my favorite moments was meeting a wild pod of dolphins. So yeah. I don't think I can choose one.
No, yeah. Where did you meet the wild pod of dolphins?
So yeah, I met them in the Marshall Islands, so in the Pacific.
Yeah.
It was actually, I was there for work. We were supposed to be in a meeting. It was I was doing the right thing.
The meeting was canceled. You were out playing. You didn't skip your meeting.
I did not skip the meeting. I wasn't allowed to be in the meeting because I was representing an NGO, which is actually quite unfortunate. The meeting was an interesting one on fisheries compliance, but in some of the discussions, we weren't allowed to be there as NGOs because it was closed discussion.
Gotcha.
So we got an extra couple of days off. And so obviously we decided, being in the Pacific, to take the opportunity to get out on the ocean. And a few of us rented a boat. And some people were watching the dolphins from the boat. And I asked to be dropped off to snorkel. And then sometime later, just out of the blue, this small pod of wild dolphins just approached me, and they started circling and swimming and rolling around. It was amazing. It was a few short minutes, but it was just me and them in the middle of nowhere. It felt really surreal. It was magical. So although officially I would have loved to be in that meeting, I was so glad that just happened in the time that short time that we had out on the ocean. I was really grateful. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that was the dolphin's way of telling you were in the right place at the right time, right?
Oh, that's a really nice way of thinking about it. Yes, it was.
Very cool. So what does the ocean mean to you?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm an islander. So growing up, the sea or the ocean was a big part of my life. And so I think apart from being a source of relaxation and happiness, I love being on the beach and by the sea. I think now, knowing what I know and having learned just how many people are depending on the ocean for their livelihoods and their sustenance and their food, and how many communities the ocean touches, I think to me it represents one of the sort of fundamental building blocks that we need to protect, both for the benefit of the environment itself, for its own benefit, but then of the marine ecosystems, but also of those who depend on it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were given a blank check, unlimited funding for any project or projects, up to 3, what would you use the money for?
Oh, up to 3. Okay, this is a big blank check.
It's a blank check? Blank check.
Oh, okay. So this is, difficult. I think it's not surprising that I would say that I'd use it for the work that our team is just starting to improve this regional coordination in the fight against IUU fishing. So we have big plans there, and it's still the beginning, but I think that a regional approach to fighting these issues is really could be quite effective, and getting countries to work together and improving that international cooperation is really very important. And then I think because of my background in information technology, and I'm a firm believer that data gathering and data management and information exchange is so important. So I think I would dedicate part of that check to an initiative that helps authorities to build their capacity, the capacity that they need to collect this information, to ensure that it's kept accurate and up to date, to process it as is needed, ideally using automation and artificial intelligence techniques if they can be. And then most importantly, to ensure that whoever needs it to take the management decisions and to take effective action against those who are operating outside the law have access to it. So I know that seems really basic and quite simple, but it's quite surprising how often we find that these sort of building blocks, the fundamentals are missing, or they need improvement, and how much of an impact that could make. So yeah, I think.
Yeah, I like that. I like, going back to the fundamentals, going back to the basics, because it's important to have something to build off of.
Yeah, and if you think about how many authorities, how many countries, how many groups need to be involved in getting that to work, it does need a blank check, I think.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to take a lot of effort, but I like it. It's a great initiative.
Okay, so now we just need to find a check.
Now we got to find that blank check. What is your favorite field story or stories to tell? And you just told an amazing one with the dolphins. But this could be just like an awesome time, out in the field, out in the ocean, or if you're able to talk about, some of the meetings that you've had, I feel like that's kind of like your field and your territory as well.
Yes, I mean, the dolphins is definitely my favorite one, but that's also not really representative of my day-to-day job, right? So yeah, I think one of my favorite field stories was the first time I observed well, it wasn't a real, but it was a sort of staged fisheries inspection on a tuna fishing vessel in Thailand. It was part of a training program.
Okay.
And that was really interesting because I hadn't seen that quantity of fish being offloaded before, and I hadn't seen those parts of such a big vessel before, actually. So I had been on fishing vessels in Malta, but they were smaller. and the catch was much smaller as well. So that was really interesting. I was there with a group of stakeholders, including my ex-colleagues at the FAO and other NGOs and the Thai authorities, and the inspectors were explaining to us what they do on a day-to-day basis, and you know, the sort of questions they ask and the sort of things they look into on the vessel, and then afterwards how they sort of keep the fish under wraps so that they know that it hasn't been tampered with after they've inspected it and so on. So that was super interesting. And then I think from the meetings side of things, I really enjoy international meetings. There is a biannual meeting, again, of the FAO, which I've attended for several sessions in a row, and that's called the Committee on Fisheries. And it is a really broad meeting where state representatives meet and they sort of decide on the direction of fisheries and aquaculture for the next couple of years. And so I just really enjoy being there. First of all, we always have priorities that we're advocating for and, you know, pushing decisions to be taken, or even if it's not necessarily a decision-making body, pushing for certain messages to be expressed and communicated and brought up so that then they can be further discussed in other fora. But also it's so broad because it covers so many different topics that you learn a lot when you're there. You get to meet so many different stakeholders from different parts of the world, and it's really very enlightening, I think. So these sort of big meetings are my favorite, and unfortunately we haven't been having many of those in person for a while.
Right.
But yeah, I can't wait for it to get back to normal.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Very cool. At the end of each episode, I like to leave the audience with a conservation ask to go forth and bring into the world. And we've chatted a little bit about some things, but what would you like my audience to take from your episode today?
The first thing, which we've already spoken about, is I'd like the audience to think a little bit more about where their seafood comes from, and to maybe build some confidence in asking questions about that when they buy their fish, so that the actors in the supply chain know that consumers are interested. So it might be just a simple question like, oh, do you know where this fish was caught? Or ideally you would ask how it was caught as well. But anyway, simple questions just to start off, and then making, let's say, more informed choices if possible. You know, as I mentioned, there are apps you can use. There are other tools around. So yeah, that's the first ask. Then my second ask is to look and think more about fisher safety. So fishing is one of the most dangerous occupations, and fishers in the world, unfortunately, are not afforded the same standards or labor protections that other workers in other sectors can rely on. Even workers on merchant ships have much higher safety standards than fishers. And, you know, we're relying on these people to feed us, and it's a tough job, and it's definitely not as safe as it should be. So just being more aware about that, more aware of that, and reading more into it, I think that would be definitely very beneficial. And then the last one, and this is based on my own personal experiences, you know, if you're interested in marine conservation or any conservation really, just think about how your skills and expertise, no matter how far removed they seem from the conservation world, can be put to good use. So there are so many different ways to end up in the conservation world. There are so many different roles that we need filled, and so many things to do yet, that I think anyone really can put their skills and their experience to good use to benefit both the people and the planet. So if you're interested in that, sort of don't give up, you know, think in maybe not such a straight line, and your impact could be really helpful to so many people.
I love that. All of those were wonderful. And at that last point is something I really try to bring home for my audience, because a lot of people think that they have to actually become a marine biologist to make a difference. And I love having people like you on the show and highlighting your story, because you don't. You can have all these different skill sets and still make such a huge, wonderful impact in the ocean and in the marine world. So I think that's really awesome. And I love that that was your part of your conservation ask.
Thank you, Karen. I'm glad that we have podcasts such as this one to get that message across. I think it's so important.
Oh, thanks. So if the audience wants to find you, connect with you, learn more about you and or your work, where's the best place to do so?
I think the best is my email address. So
I can put a link to your
yes,
PEW,
exactly.
I can put a link to your PEW webpage on there.
Yes, there's my PEW webpage with my email address. I think that's the best way.
Okay.
Don't hesitate to get in touch. If there are any questions you have after this conversation, if you'd like to learn more, PEW is really good at putting out communications materials. So we have several fact sheets and briefs that people can read if they're interested. So yes, please get in touch if you'd like to.
Very cool. Well, Dawn, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really enjoyed our chat.
Thanks, Cara. It was really nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Hey, one more thing. Do you want to dive more into the ocean and marine biology? Need a little guidance on ocean conservation? Head on over to marinebio.life/resources. We've got book recommendations, job posting pages, conference suggestions, and ocean-friendly products. All recommendations have been personally vetted by me, and I will continue to add to the collection as I come across cool things to share. Head on over to marinebio.life/resources to learn more. See you over there. Thank you for listening to today's show. I'd love to hear any insight you've gleaned. Leave a comment in the show notes or send me an email over at marinebio.life. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a review and of course, share with your friends. If you want more resources for ocean news, including conservation topics and careers, plus personal insight from me that I just don't share anywhere else, join me at marinebio.life and sign up for email updates. Keep after your dreams and making waves in your community. One person can make a difference. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast.